Imagine waking up, turning on the news, and the weatherman says, "Good morning. Today's forecast is partly cloudy with a 70% chance of your government weaponizing a thunderstorm." You'd laugh. You'd roll your eyes. You'd think, oh great, another conspiracy theory from that one YouTube channel with the bad graphics. But here's the thing. This one isn't just a conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy with a paper trail. It's been tested, it worked. And depending on who you ask, it might still be happening, quietly, while we all argue about pineapple on pizza. Let's rewind to the late 60s. The US military kicks off something called Project Popeye. And no, it wasn't about spinach. It was about rain. Too much rain. The goal? Make enemy supply routes in Vietnam so muddy, so waterlogged that they couldn't move trucks, couldn't carry supplies, couldn't even walk without looking like they were training for an Olympic mud run. How'd they do it? Cloud seeding. Planes would fly in, dump silver iodide into the clouds, and boom, you've got downpours on demand. Monsoon season went from bad to biblical flood in a matter of weeks. And here's the kicker. It wasn't just a fun experiment. It worked so well they kept it up for 5 years straight. That's 5 years of weaponized rain. Somewhere, Mother Nature was screaming, "This isn't what I meant when I said, let it pour." But if Popeye was the starter kit for controlling the weather, the next project was the deluxe edition, Operation Storm Fury. And this time, they weren't just messing with rain. They were going after the big ones, hurricanes. The official pitch was noble. We're going to weaken hurricanes to save lives. The reality? They were tossing silver iodide into monster storms to see if they could push them around. Sometimes it seemed to work, sometimes it didn't, and sometimes the hurricane got stronger. Imagine trying to calm down a raging bull by throwing a rock at it. That was basically storm fury. But let's be real. This wasn't just about public safety. This was a proof of concept for the ultimate military power, controlling nature itself. If you can change where a hurricane goes, you can decide who gets hit and who doesn't. That's not just science. That's playing chess with God's pieces. And here's where it gets messy. The second you start messing with the weather, you open up a Pandora's box of ethics. Sure, you can say you're doing it for the greater good. But what if you accidentally flood a city full of civilians, or steer a storm away from your own coastline and into another country's? That's not a my bad situation. That's an international crisis wrapped in a natural disaster. Eventually, the government announced they were done with large-scale weather modification. Case closed. Nothing to see here. But if you've been paying attention, you know that "we stopped doing that" in government speak usually translates to "we stopped telling you we were doing that." And sure enough, while storm fury was fading out of public view, a new name started floating around conspiracy circles. HAARP, the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. Officially, it's a harmless research station in Alaska studying the ionosphere. Unofficially, well, ask the internet and you'll get answers ranging from "it's steering hurricanes" to "it can cause earthquakes" to "it controls your brain" and possibly your garage door. HAARP has the ability to pump insane amounts of energy into the atmosphere. Does that mean it's controlling the weather? Officially, no. But unofficially? Let's just say it makes for a very convenient scapegoat every time a storm does something weird. And in the conspiracy game, plausible deniability is the world's most valuable currency. Because here's the thing. Every once in a while, a hurricane will pull some bizarre stunt meteorologists can't fully explain. A sudden left turn, a rapid intensification, a stall that dumps biblical amounts of rain. Science says, hey, sometimes nature is just chaotic. Conspiracy folks say, or maybe it's not nature making the call. And it's not just America playing with the skies. The Soviet Union, China, and modern Russia have all dabbled in cloud seeding. China famously did it before the 2008 Beijing Olympics to make sure the opening ceremony had perfect weather. That's right, the blue skies you saw on TV were sponsored by chemical manipulation. But here's the thing, nobody talks about enough. Weather systems are ridiculously interconnected. Change one thing and you could accidentally wreck something halfway across the world. You weaken a hurricane here, maybe you trigger a drought over there. You cause extra rain in one country, maybe you rob another of its rainfall entirely. This isn't like changing the thermostat in your house. It's like trying to change the thermostat in your house while it's hardwired to 50 million other houses. So, why mess with it? Why take the risk? Because weather control isn't about convenience, it's about leverage. Imagine having the ability to guarantee good skies for your military while your enemies are slogging through torrential downpours. Imagine being able to push a hurricane away from your own shores, and maybe into theirs. That's not just an advantage, that's the kind of thing that changes the entire balance of power without a single bullet fired. And that's why the creepiest part of all this is the possibility that it never really stopped. That somewhere, behind locked doors and security badges, the playbook for controlling the weather didn't get thrown away. It just got updated. Because here's the truth. Not every storm is engineered, but every storm could be. That's the terrifying part. It's not about what they're doing, it's about what they could do. The potential is the weapon. And here's the part they don't put in your high school history textbook. Weather control wasn't just about science, it was about showing off. The Cold War wasn't only fought with nukes, spies, and propaganda posters. It was fought with sky flexing. Think about it. If you could control the clouds, you weren't just defending your borders, you were broadcasting to the world. We own the sky, buddy. It's like walking into a poker game and casually tossing your house keys on the table. You don't have to win every hand. You've already told everyone you can buy the casino. And remember the Environmental Modification Convention of 1978? No, of course not, because it's the least catchy name in treaty history. But it basically says, hey, let's all agree not to mess with the weather for military purposes because, that's bad. Now ask yourself, why would they need a treaty banning weather warfare unless people were actually doing weather warfare? This is the same logic as a "don't feed the bears" sign. They don't put it up unless somebody's been handing Yogi a sandwich. But if the treaty worked, why do we keep finding modern stories that sound suspiciously like someone still poking the atmosphere with a stick? In 2010, Pakistan had floods so bad they displaced 20 million people. And within days, conspiracy sites were ablaze with whispers that these floods weren't just bad luck. They were punishment. You think that's wild? In 2017, when Hurricane Harvey parked over Houston and dumped 1 trillion gallons of rain, some corners of the internet swore it wasn't nature, it was engineering. Could all of that be nonsense? Absolutely. But here's the problem. The technology exists. We've had it for decades. Once you know that, every once-in-a-century storm starts looking a little less like a freak of nature and a little more like someone fiddled with the storm dial and cranked it to nightmare. HAARP gets all the conspiracy attention, but it's not the only player. There's a whole family of radar, radio, and atmospheric heating systems out there, both government-run and private. Officially, they're for research, but they can all, in theory, mess with the building blocks of weather. It's like the difference between having a chef's knife for cooking and realizing you could also use it to pop someone's car tires. And then there's the oops factor no one talks about. Even if the goal is noble, let's say you're trying to push a hurricane out to sea, there's no guarantee the storm will listen. Weather is like a cat. You can coax it, guide it, tempt it, but at the end of the day, it's gonna do whatever it wants. And if it decides to ignore your plan and slam into the coast instead, well, congratulations, you just made a bad situation worse. And good luck telling the public, yeah, sorry about your house, we were just running an experiment. You don't even have to prove weather control exists for it to be a weapon. All you need is for your enemies to believe you have it. If a storm wrecks their crops, they're not going to sit there wondering if it was natural. They're going to assume you did it. Fear itself becomes the tool, which means even if governments aren't actively steering hurricanes today, the idea that they could is almost as powerful as actually doing it. And if you want to see how slippery this slope is, just look at civilian weather tech. Dubai is already using drones to zap clouds with electricity to make it rain on command. If a city can do that for better lawn care, imagine what a $1 trillion defense department could pull off when the stakes are global power. So when the weatherman says, "Tomorrow's storm will be one for the record books," ask yourself, whose record books? Nature's? Or some black budget program with a name so bland you'd never suspect it, like Atmospheric Research Initiative Number 7. Because if history's any guide, the storm over your head might not just be a storm. It might be the latest chapter in a decades-long game of weather chess. And we're the pawns, getting drenched, flooded, and blown around while the real players never step outside. And maybe that's the creepiest part of all. Not that someone can control the weather, but that they might be doing it right now, and we wouldn't even know. So, when you're watching the clouds roll in and you hear thunder in the distance, remember, it could be nature doing its thing, or it could be the sound of someone flipping a very expensive switch. And hey, if you want more deep dives into the tech, history, and government secrets they'd really rather you not think about, you know what to do. Subscribe, stick around, and keep your eyes on the skies.